All right, everybody. I'm over at Eric's place, and we're ready to get started with our 2016 off-season rules meeting for the. Someone join, I guess. Okay. So anyway, for our off-season meeting, I'm going to go ahead and do a screen share of our 2015 rules and regulations document, and we're just going to use that as kind of how we go through tonight's meeting and determine what we're going to change for next year. So we're going to go ahead and just cover everything in the order that they appear. Obviously, the first couple sections are not going to change, but when we're going to get down to section 2, which is our roster settings. And back when we had the old league, the what was it, Just Do It League? There was 16 teams. We moved down from a 2 running back to a 1 running back setup, and we are interested in moving that back. I believe we're going to go ahead and add a second running back for next year. Eric?
Yeah. But actually, I said yes. So
yeah. Okay. So we're going to go ahead and just make that official. We're going to change that to a 2 running back situation. So everything else is going to be the same. We're still going to have 2 wide receivers. We're still going to have a flex. It's just that we're, tight end, and flex can be a tight end, can be a running back, can be a wide receiver, but there will be a second running back position for the starting lineup. So as far as that goes, for our total roster, do we want to still stick with 16 players total, which would move our bench down to 7?
Yeah. That's what I was thinking, but obviously, we're open to input.
That's the standard.
Yes.
What I'll do is, since not everybody is actually able to join us tonight, anything that we decide is up for a vote, I'll actually put that on the Facebook page because it allows you to put polls and people can vote on there.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. So we can do that.
Sure.
So, but the decision will be between keeping it at 8 bench spots or moving down to 7.
Yeah. I just think that 16 is better.
Yeah, seven bench spots is the standard.
Yeah, and it keeps the rounds an even number of rounds, like 17 rounds.
That's true.
And deals with some nonsense with.
Yeah.
Whoever sucked last year gets.
All right. Well, we'll go ahead and make that 7 then.
Yeah, I don't think anybody's really gonna be sweating an extra bench spot.
No, I don't think so either.
And we already have too much. Are we allowed to cuss on here?
I don't really care.
Okay. Well, I'll try not to. But we already have too many spots. Where people are just hoarding players, and
yeah.
And we'll talk about the defense thing a little later, because I've been guilty of it for the last few years, just stashing defenses.
Or quarterbacks, or both.
Well, yeah, but fuck quarterbacks. I don't care about them. But defenses, it can be annoying if you're trying to pick somebody up, and this one guy, me, has 4 defenses on his bench, and and people have complained about it before, and I'm like, all right, fine, we'll just deck that down. But we'll talk about that a little bit.
So no, that works though. So we'll add the second best spot, and we'll move it down to 7 best spots. We'll keep it at 2 injured reserve spots, though. I think that's fine.
Yeah, that's fine.
All right. So the next thing, let me make sure that was the only other thing that I need to talk about as far as that goes. All right. Yeah. So we're ready to move on to the next section, which is our scoring settings. For the most part, I want to keep it pretty much the same. Quarterback scoring, I think, is fine. Rushing, receiving, I think is fine. Do we want to do anything with the reception points?
I would be open to bumping the PPR up to maybe
like a full half point.
But that's peanuts. So
right.
I guess we can poll on that, but it doesn't make that big.
If anybody wants to make that a half point, let us know. Yeah, I am open to that option. Let's see.
Yeah, I wouldn't mind it, but again.
Yeah. Evan.
I'm pretty happy with the scoring.
Yeah.
It is,
but Evan actually just brought up an interesting roster thing, is as far as the a cap on the number of players per position on the roster? Do we want to set a cap on that? Like, you can only have up to a certain number of defenses or a certain number of quarterbacks. I mean, I think that if we bump it down to 7 bench spots, we should be okay on that. I mean, because here's the thing: if someone spends those extra bench spots on defenses, that's depth. That's depth that they could have that they're not going to have.
That's handcuffs. That's
right.
That's bye week guys.
I think we're okay without putting a cap on it.
Yeah, I mean, I don't see if you have 4 defenses and you've got 3 other bench spots available. You're really
hurting yourself, kind of.
You're taking a big risk by doing that.
Yeah. I mean, if it works out for you, then great.
Yeah, but it's not like there's no payoff,
right?
There for that decision. Yeah. So I think it's okay. Now, if we see that that's not the case, that people can.
Yeah, I mean, we can change things next year.
Yeah, but I don't think anybody's really had a big issue with, where it's been too many streaming defenses. I mean, I know that. Particularly this year, Andrew struggled with defenses but that was a lot of it was because
there were other options on the waivers who scored more than his defenses did. He just made the wrong decisions.
Right, and obviously a lot of the defenses on waivers suck, and you're never going to pick them up. But I mean, Andrew also didn't take away New England's defense.
Yeah,
I mean, he had a good defense. He bailed on him. So I think. And besides, we're already mitigating defense enough as it is. We'll get to that.
Yeah, and we'll get to that. So
I'm not too worried about people hoarding, and scoring 25 points with their defense, while other people get -10.
Right.
Because they picked up a crappy defense.
Right. Now we are on a bit of a delay, so people getting in the chat are going to be a little bit behind us. Evan, let us know if the stream is working right, if the sound is good, and if the screen sharing is working correctly. Let's go ahead and get back to the scoring settings. If anybody strongly wants us to move up to a half-point PPR, I'm fine with that, especially since we have the 0.1, the tenth of a point per rush attempt. I'm fine with bumping up the receptions to a half point. I'm not going to do that unless people want it, though. So one thing that I do want to add potentially add in week 5, Julio Jones recovered that fumble in the end zone against I think that was against the Redskins, and did not get fantasy points for it in our league. So the question is, do we want to allow offensive players who recover a fumble in the end zone to be credited for that score? Because that is an option on ESPN scoring, and I'm fine with adding that.
I think it should be because, just because every other situation, every offensive yard gained, every touchdown.
Right. I mean, really, the only thing that an offensive player can't be credited for a touchdown for is a kickoff or a punt return, and that's because we credit the defense / special teams.
I think every touchdown scored should go to somebody or some unit, if not a defense or special teams, to an individual.
All right. So we'll go ahead and add that in.
Now, a quick question about that is, let's say, let's stick with Julio Jones. Julio Jones catches a pass, and then for some reason he decides to get nifty, and he laterals the ball to Roddy White, and Roddy White totes it for 30 yards and a touchdown.
I think that situation is already taken care of. I think that obviously Roddy White would get the touchdown because he actually crossed the goal line.
Yeah, but what about the yards?
I'm not sure how ESPN does that. And I'd actually be interested to see that because
we saw some funky stuff happen.
Right in the Raiders game.
Yeah, in the Raiders game.
So what I'll do is I'll go back and look at that. I'll look at how that scoring worked out. I think that everybody got credit for the yards that they covered. I'm not sure who got credit for those negative yards though, because they gave those points back to Amari Cooper.
Yeah, but Murray took a hit because
Murray took the hit.
Because I had him in my meaningless third place game, but he went down from like 24.5 to like 21.
I can add something into the document where I can go in and make changes. The big thing is we need to determine exactly how we're going to do that. And the other thing is, if I don't see the game, I might not know about that situation. Yeah, that's true. And I'm gonna get NFL Rewind again next year. So hopefully that'll be okay. But the big thing is
if we're both watching the games on NFL Rewind, hopefully it doesn't get by both of us.
But the big thing is that with something like that, or if you're if there's a defensive adjustment that needs to be made and I miss it, everybody needs to make sure they're keeping track of their team. If there's an issue, let me and Eric know so that we can go in and make sure that if there is a scoring issue that needs to be corrected, that we can take care of making that adjustment.
Yeah, that shouldn't be too hard for like the pick six.
Yeah, I mean the defense thing has not been a big deal because I just go into the ESPN, the scoring summary, check how many defensive touchdowns there were, and do that. And that hasn't been an issue this year. I think that there was 1 week that I missed it until like the next weekend, and I went back and made the changes, and thankfully it didn't affect anybody's wins or losses.
The adjustments never affected any outcomes of games. Like I don't think it did. I don't think any game was settled by that few points, and also happened to have one of those. So.
Certainly, it wasn't. It didn't happen where I made the adjustment after the game ended.
Yeah,
I know that definitely didn't happen. Okay, so but yeah, so we'll figure out as far as the points before I actually publish the 2016 document. We'll have that figured out. If anybody has suggestions about other offensive scoring changes, let me know. We may not do them. I'm pretty happy with our offensive scoring right now. But obviously, if you have ideas, we'd like to hear it. Couple big issues that I do really want to address. Firstly, with our defense. Right now, our defense can score as few as like minus 15 points. It hasn't happened, but it is possible.
It's getting pretty low.
I think the lowest we've actually had officially is like minus 9.8 as far as a defense that was started. I think minus 9.8 is the lowest, but that's still pretty bad.
Yeah.
And the highest that we've seen has been in like the mid 30s, which that part is fine.
Well,
I mean that's because of touchdowns. You can't really avoid that.
Well, we're not going to say you
but
touchdowns.
Having such a big such a wide range of possible outcomes, I think just has too much of an impact on fantasy games. I don't like that defense can have that much of an impact, especially the negative impact. So I want to change our defensive scoring settings. The first thing I want to do is I really want to remove the reward/deduction system for yards. Mm-hmm. You in agreement with that?
Yeah.
Okay.
I think that's what causes the most problems when it comes to the big numbers and negatives.
Because I mean, right now, like the yardage is only if you give up less than 100 yards, you can get as many as 6 points.
That never happens.
And you can lose as much as 5 points if you give up 550 yards, which isn't exactly the most common thing, but certainly happens.
It happens a lot more than giving up less than 100.
Right. So we'll go ahead and remove the defensive yardage points. For the points allowed, I do want to rework that as well. Right now there are, let me count these. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. There are 9 tiers of points allowed that you can give up that result in different numbers of fantasy points. And I'd like to reduce that down to 5. And I don't want to go into the negatives. So right now you can get 10 points if you give up 0 points allowed, and you can lose 10 points if you give up 46. And if someone has a better idea of what the tiers should be, that's fine. My idea is 0 points allowed stays at 10. Right now, 1 to 6 is 8 points. 7 to 13 is 5 points. I want to make it 1 to 13 is 7 points. 14 to 21 right now is 2 different tiers that are currently 2 and 0, and I want to make that 5. 22 to 34, also 2 different tiers that are -2 and -5, and I want to make that 3 points. And then 35 plus would be 0 points instead of -8 and then -10 at 46. So the reason that I'm thinking that is because that's kind of the easiest way to do it, because the tiers are already set up in ESPN. There's only so much customization that we can do with the tiers. So right now, those 9 tiers that we have right now, those are, and you can see it on the screen, those are the 9 tiers of scoring that are allowed in ESPN custom scoring. So basically, I'm just combining different tiers. Now, if we want to change how many fantasy points are allowed, we can do that. It doesn't have to be 10, 7, 5, 3, 0. That's just my idea for that. Do you have any thoughts on it?
I mean, that sounds pretty good to me, but that's something that other people.
Okay. So if anybody has different thoughts on that, just let us know on that. And yeah, Evan, I know that it is part of the defensive scoring, but that the whole issue is that when I first set up the scoring for this league, I wanted to have the yardage thing because I felt that defenses should be rewarded and penalized for anything that a defense does, but it causes too much of an impact on the fantasy games. And like I said, I just don't want defenses or kickers, for that matter, to have such a big range of outcomes that can have such a huge effect on fantasy games. I'd much rather that the offensive players be the primary things for that. I mean, if you have a great defense, then you're going to get some games where you score 20, maybe even up to 30 points, and that's going to help you, and that's fine. But I don't want it to hurt teams as much as it has in the past. The other thing that I want to look at is kicker scoring. Right now, the kicker scoring is you get a point for a PAT, you lose a point if you miss it. You get 3 points for a field goal under 40 yards, 4 points for a field goal 40 to 49, 5 points for a field goal of 50 plus. You lose 2 points for missing a field goal less than 40 yards. You lose a point for missing a field goal 40 to 49, and then if you miss a field goal 50 plus, you don't get penalized at all. As much as I think that scoring system is a fair scoring system, it has, again, kickers have kind of a wide range of outcomes. And so my thought for kickers is you keep PATs at 1 point, you make all field goals worth 3 points, and there are no deductions. So if you miss a PAT, your penalty is that you don't get a point. Instead of it being a 2-point swing, it's just a 1-point swing. If you miss a field goal of any distance, it's not, basically it's a 5-point swing whether you make or miss right now. This way it's just a 3-point swing.
Yeah. The kicking stuff is pretty. I don't mind not getting rid of the penalty because that's kind of crappy that stupid kicker could cost you 2 points, and that's that's dumb. And well, I think it's obviously it's not unfair, but it's too much. There's too much variety for kickers. I mean, they're kickers. You shouldn't be. Kickers are so random and so interchangeable that 1 week to the next your kicker could score you 16, 17 points, and the next week he scores you 2.
Right.
That's too much.
There's still going to be some of that.
Yeah,
but it won't be as wide of a gap.
Yeah, it won't be like Cairo Santos or whatever for the Chiefs that 1 week where he had 28 points because he hit 7 field goals and almost all of them were 40 to 50 yards.
Right.
So that's if he hits, then it would be 21, which is still really good for a kicker.
Yeah.
That's a freakishly good game for a kicker. But when you hit 7 field goals, that's what you get. But that's 7 extra points. Just that that we're going to get rid of, which is I think that's fine because again they're kickers.
Evan, you're saying change 10 to 7 and minus 10
Well,
to
that
minus
keeps-
7. Is that for the yardage? Because the yardage was never that.
Well, if he's talking about for like the point totals for the defense,
Okay.
like instead of moving it so that
Yeah, I mean that helps a little bit, but not enough. And I really would rather just go ahead and get rid of the
the negative points.
get rid of the negative points.
Well, that way nobody's benching defenses or something.
Right.
Stuff like that.
Yeah. I mean that's the other thing is I just
I also feel guilty about benching a defense. Like cheating.
I mean there's nothing wrong with it. I mean it's perfectly fine. It's a part of the strategy.
Mm-hmm.
But I just would rather that people not feel like they have to do that.
Yeah.
Especially because here's the other thing. And this just kind of helps people out, I guess. And, maybe people don't need to be helped out. But when you bench a defense in that situation, yeah, you're protecting your lead. You're protecting your victory. But you're also risking, not getting points that could help you in a tiebreaker at the end of the season. Yeah. If it comes down to that.
Plus you got stat corrections too, which could.
Yeah. So this just kind of helps people with that. I mean, you still got to pick the defense that's going to score decent points.
Yeah, you can't.
But this way, you don't need to.
You'll still
do that.
You'll still be at a disadvantage if you pick crappy defenses.
Right.
It won't be as big of a disadvantage, and it gets rid of a lot of the headache that involves, fantasy football when it comes to benching defenses and stuff like that. It's just. Yeah, sure, fine strategy or not, but that's not really strategy. Strategy is a plan of attack. This is reacting to an obvious situation. If you're up 5 points in a fantasy game, you're gonna bench your defense if you haven't played Monday night or Sunday night. It's easy. So it's not really something that's like, wow, that was a really smart move by that guy. No, it's just something that you do because you're not an idiot.
I didn't realize I forgot that I had group chat enabled on here. Danny came in here and said he likes the negative points kickers for people too. All right. Well, if anybody is really against the kicking changes, we can put a vote thing on there if someone really doesn't like it, and we'll see what the outcome of the vote is. But my preference is to make those changes. But we'll see what happens. The one other thing that I forgot to mention for defenses is there's a scoring setting that was not added until after we had already put together the rules and regulations document for last year, which is the 1 point safety. Obviously, that's not something that happens very often, but I am going to go ahead and add that in for next year. So not a huge deal. It's not likely to affect any games, but I am going to put that change in. Yeah.
Just in case it does happen. Do I play for that?
Right. Because I think it did happen once this year. I don't know if anybody started that defense, so it wasn't a big deal. It didn't?
I don't know. That never
happened. Oh, no, it was a 2 point return.
Yeah,
that's what happened. And we already had that in the scoring, so that's good.
But even just have it all in there. All scoring options should be available just because this is fantasy football. You gotta take into account everything that happens.
Right. Like I did last season, I will continue to make the scoring adjustments for the pick sixes, fumble sixes, and safeties.
I think everybody agrees that's the best way to do it.
Yeah. So the next section that we're going to talk about is the teams, divisions, and conferences. Nothing really new to talk about here. We're still going to do the 3 divisions and everything, no conferences.
I have one suggestion. But,
yeah, what's that?
Well, we got the 3 division winners and a wild card, right?
Yeah.
That's who makes the playoffs.
Yeah.
Would we maybe want to consider adjusting seeding?
Yeah, and I think that we actually I think we'll get to that in the playoff when we get down to the playoff section. So but we will talk about that definitely.
We're still doing the division draft.
Yes. So William Battle and I will do the division. We'll do the division draft. The division draft, if I can say it. Last year, I forget because we didn't actually put it in the rules and regulations document. When you and Danny did it last year, who got first pick?
Danny got first pick.
Okay, because he won.
Yeah. That's true.
Okay, so we'll go ahead and keep that consistent. I'll get first pick. William Battle will get second pick, and we'll go back and forth to pick our divisions, and then the 4 people who aren't picked will be the Central Division, and we'll do it the same way that we did last year. The winner is
that division's not supposed to suck, by the way.
Right. It's really not. It's supposed to be the best.
Yeah,
it's supposed to be the best division. That should be
So
the toughest division. 2 wild cards out of there.
So don't suck. And don't go 7-7 and not be good enough to win the division. That was annoying. I was like, why didn't I pick these guys?
So, and then my division will be the East. Williams will be the West, and the other teams will be the Central. Sasquatch will not be back next year. Sean Kennedy has already agreed that he'll take his spot, so we'll have Sean back. So nobody brand new to fantasy.
Getting Sean back in makes sense.
So, and he'll have control of Sasquatch's team, so he'll get to choose one of those players for his keeper.
I think Sasquatch will have to cover a little bear there.
Yeah, I'll have to take a look. I did, by the way. I went through all of everybody's teams this past week. So I have what round every player would be a keeper in. So I'll send those out sometime. I mean, we don't need to do that now. I'll send it out sometime during the summer.
So I'll be able to keep Josh Gordon when he comes back.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah.
Sweet.
Eighth round keeper.
Keeper for if you can stop smoking weed and be all right.
Yeah.
Considering my keeper situation sucks, but that's another story.
All right. So the division draft will be on Sunday, May 1st. It's the day after the conclusion of the NFL rookie draft. Moving on to players, acquisitions, trades, keepers. This is an area that Eric put high priority on overhauling, and I'm definitely in agreement with him.
Evan's not.
Evan is not, but Eric and I are pretty serious about implementing this change. Right now, our waiver system resets to the inverse order of standings every week. And as we saw this season, bad teams kept getting the best available players. It didn't make a difference in the sense of bad teams getting better for the most part.
Right.
I mean, just taking Massimini's team, for example, he had, he got Devonta Freeman. He got someone else too. He got either Spencer Ware or Charkandrick West. I think it was West. And he might have had one more too. And, and his team still didn't make the playoffs. But where it made a huge difference was, looking at Eric's team, for example. He went. Okay. Well, yeah. Look at Andrew. Andrew drafted a lot of injured players, so that part was on him. But you look at him, and he had Le'Veon Bell got hurt, and Edelman got hurt, and other players on his team got hurt. Steve Smith got hurt, and he didn't have high enough priority to get anybody that was really any good to replace him.
I mean, his team wasn't even it wasn't like his team was.
His team was a good, it was a decent team,
but they was 500 most of the year.
Right.
He wasn't even in first place.
So
and he couldn't replace his players.
Right. So, really just looking in the interest of fairness, what we want to do is next year we're going to introduce an FAAB, which stands for Free Agent Acquisition Budget. The only thing that we're really, that we need to decide is whether each team will get $100, $150, or $200 to spend during the season on free agents. But we are absolutely doing this. This is not, the FAAB is not up for a vote. We are doing this. Now, I don't really have a preference on which dollar amount we do. I kind of lean toward 200.
That's usually. But
it really doesn't
it doesn't
matter a whole lot because
percentage of your stake.
Exactly. Basically the only difference is that 200. You can bid 0.5% of your stake essentially.
All it does is, I mean, anybody that's taken any level of economics knows that. Your dollar is only as valuable as how many dollars there are. So
right.
If each person has $150, then $15 in that situation is the same thing as $20 if everybody has $200.
Right.
It's the same thing.
Yeah.
So I mean, you might get a little more nitty gritty with each dollar, but again, that's not a big deal. And,
right.
And I'm fine with 200 just because that seems to be
It seems to be the standard
for auction leagues,
yeah.
for auction drafts, it's 200. I mean, that's a little different, but. I just think 200 is a nice number.
Yeah.
People can. feel secure with their $200 stack,
Right.
and they blow all of it in week 1, and they realize they're never going to pick anybody up.
Right.
But that's their problem.
So we'll probably do 200 unless someone really wants to do 150. But
I don't see why anybody would
lower. Now, what this is going to mean that each week everybody will have the same opportunity to pick up every available unowned players. So what you're going to do is waivers will still process on Wednesdays, which means that on Tuesday everybody will get a chance to blindly bid an amount of their FAAB money or FAB money that they're willing to spend on those players. The minimum bid I am going to set at $0. So if you do run out of your FAB budget, you can still add and drop players, but you're going to have to budget your spending because, if you run out of money and you have to bid $0, you're really only going to get the players that nobody is putting a priority on signing and nobody is bidding on signing. The biggest question that I have for Eric is whether the free agent auction should be continuous, where the players who are not added would then be on waivers again the next day, or just once per week as they are now. So like where, once the waivers processed, the players not picked up become free agents, and you wouldn't have to actually spend money to pick them up.
I like the idea of them going to free agency.
Okay.
Just because, like, if nobody bids on them, it's like a waiver process where everybody gets their shot, and then if you didn't want them on Tuesday, then you can't sit there and say, "Oh, I want a secured opportunity to grab that guy on Wednesday," and somebody else already took him. Well, you should have put a bid on him on Tuesday then. No sympathy there. Put $1 on him, and then you get him for $1. But if you're not willing to pony up, then it's first come, first serve.
Right. Okay, and then I guess tie-breaking would be inverse order of standing still. So if two people bid the same, if the top bid is $20 and two people made that bid, then whoever was lower in the standings would get the player.
Well, because at that point,
you should have bid an extra $1.
21,
right. Yeah.
And I don't. It doesn't have to be, like where if I need a guy, I get him. I want people to have opportunity to do it. And if they don't bid smartly, if they don't manage their budget smartly throughout the season, then tough luck. That's on you. But it can't just be, oh hey, I'm 5-4 and my starting running back got hurt, and all of a sudden Mr. 1-10 or whatever picks him up, and it's like, oh, I can't pick up any good running backs ever. I'm gonna get stuck with guys like. You basically at that point you have to score guys like Tim Hightower, where you find out
David Johnson.
Well, that's but David Johnson, that was a waiver wire pickup. But like Tim Hightower is an example where you found out midweek. I was kind of surprised. Nobody really knew that Mark Ingram was done for the year until like that Wednesday. As soon as I heard that, I was like, boom. And then like 5 minutes later, I saw you on the chat saying, "Damn it! Shit, I wanted him." I was like, well, in that case, that's free agency. That's
right. If you find out first,
fast, then first come, first serve.
Right.
That's the way it works. But
okay,
I guess I just want people to have opportunities to make moves if need be. And again, if you put yourself in a position where you can't do anything, well, too bad. That's your fault. But no sympathy for you if you blow out your budget early because you were so impressed with Carlos Hyde
that you just had to have him and you spent $150.
It's a similar example where you blew your stack because one dude went off one time.
Right. Okay, so we're gonna do that. This year the trade deadline was on the Thursday following week 8 of the NFL regular season. Do we need to change that? Should we push it back a little bit? I mean, because that basically gives us, we have almost half the season with no trading. And really for me, the most important thing is absolutely no trades. Definitely not during the playoffs. I prefer to cut it off before our
the 3 division games.
Before the 3 division games, which are weeks 12, 13, and 14. Mm-hmm. So I'm fine with having it as late as the Thursday going into week 11.
I think that's too late. I think I'm just trying to think of it like, I don't know. It's a little different for fantasy than in real life.
Right. Because I think that's why we have it week 8. I think that's around when
I think that's the same week that they have that trade deadline. But in fantasy, it's a little different.
So I'm fine with allowing trading a little bit later. I just don't want to allow it too late.
Yeah, obviously, playoffs is non-starter.
If anybody has ideas about the trade deadline, I'm all ears.
Honestly, week 8 is probably good enough. I could tolerate maybe week 9. I don't want it to go. I think week 11 is too late.
Okay.
I think between weeks 8 and 10, that's negotiable.
Okay. So if anybody has a preference, a strong preference between weeks 8, 9, or 10, let us know. We're willing to change that, but we just don't want it too late.
Well, you don't want people stacking their rosters. Now, this might be touched on later. I don't know. Are we allowed to trade future picks for players?
My thought process is no.
Yeah.
I kind of talked about it when we had our draft this year, that would be okay. And then I kind of went back on it, and here's my big issue with it. One, because our keeper system is completely offline, you won't be able to make a trade for a future draft pick in ESPN.
Yeah.
So we'd have to, now keeping track of that is not really a big problem. I keep track of so much stuff offline. It really is not an issue. The bigger issue is that this is a free league. Nobody pays anything to play in this league. Mm-hmm. You could go all in for 1 year and trade away a bunch of, trade way down in a bunch of future drafts in order to get good players now. Or you could go the opposite. If you're doing really bad this year, you could trade away your few good players for future draft picks. And that side is not as big an issue. Mm-hmm. But if you're trading away the farm for next year, or I'm sorry, if you're trading away next year for this year, and then you leave, then some unlucky asshole is going to have to come in and put up with that bullshit, and I don't want for that to be an issue.
Yeah,
so
then what do you say to the guy that made that trade? You say, oh well, fuck you don't get your picks. I mean, there's no way you can really work that.
Right.
So we're just going to avoid it altogether.
Right. So yeah, exactly. I'd rather just avoid that situation altogether. Now we are at the end of this meeting. We're going to go ahead and talk about our Dynasty League. With that, you would be allowed to do future draft picks.
Some wild shit.
Yeah. But we'll talk about that in a little while. This is just me spitballing an idea that I came up with last week as far as ad drops after the regular season. I don't feel strongly one way or the other. So agree, dissent, whatever you guys want for this. But I do want to propose an idea for not allowing ad drops during the postseason. There would be an exception, and I'll use an example to explain. If you own LaShawn McCoy and he gets injured during the final regular season game or during your first postseason game, you'd be allowed to pick up one of his backups that is not owned in our league, but you'd have to either drop LaShawn McCoy or put him on IR, and you have to have an available IR spot. So you can't take, I couldn't take Jordy Nelson, who's on IR, and drop him in order to place LaShawn McCoy on IR and pick up Carlos Williams. But that would be your exception. It would have to be, a backup to that running back, and you either have to drop that running back or place him on IR. Is that something that you would be interested in doing?
I was kind of thinking, same exact line of thinking, where, because we talked about this during the playoffs, where it was on one hand it kind of sucks that people are scooping up these good players for their playoff runs, but on the other hand, sometimes you need guys, and so it's like, wait a second, there's got to be a way around that, and that's if your guy gets hurt, then you can pick somebody up,
right?
But I think it would suck, especially if this happened, if somebody who's playing in the championship game loses their running back, and then the asshole that he's playing picks up the handcuff and then uses that against him.
And I mean, there's something to be said for that strategy. I mean, that's the only way you can really play defense in fantasy.
No, I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about them picking him up and then starting that guy again.
Oh.
I mean, it's more than that. It seems kind of like if your guy gets hurt, you need to be able to respond to that.
Yeah.
And you can't just have some other guy saying, "Oh, well, I got shitty running back, so I'm going to pick up this guy." And honestly, once you get to the playoffs, your order of priority on the waiver wire or whatever. I guess now that we're switching to the acquisition budget, it might be a little different. But
I mean, that would be the other thing to think about is, if we were to do this where you can't do ad drops after the regular season except for that situation, then that affects how you budget your fab, because do you have to have some money left over for the playoffs, or can you just make sure that you can run out of your $200 when you get to the end of the regular season?
That's tough. I don't know.
My name's not Coy, although that is how I sign my name. Like my signature, it's just Coy. I leave the R out.
Yeah. But okay, so back to the budget thing for the playoffs. I do think that you do have to have some money to pick people up. Even if you IR a guy that got hurt, I think you still need to have some type of. You can't have no dollars, I don't think.
Well, that's my whole. The minimum bid is going to be $0. So if you run out of money, you can still bid, but you're not going to get him unless nobody else bid on him. In which case, which is kind of silly, because in which case, you can just pick him up in free agency. I guess.
I don't like that. I think the minimum bid should be $1.
Yeah, because there is going to be free agency once people pass through.
I think if you're not willing to put up $1, you need to deal with free agency.
Okay.
I think that's how it should be.
Okay, so we'll do that, and we will leave it. We'll go ahead and do $200 then for the budget,
yeah, sure.
And it'll be $1 minimum bid. But like we said, it's not going to be a continuous waivers. So if they pass through, then you can get someone in free agency. So that still leaves the question as far as the ad drops and playoffs, and we can come back to that.
Yeah,
we can think about it and come back to it.
But it's almost a principle thing.
I think, and it doesn't have to be decided on today, because I'm not going to have the final draft of the 2016 document done until probably close to spring break, most likely. But yeah, so. One other thing that I want to discuss before moving on to the next section is keepers. And I think the keeper settings worked fantastically this season. I'll make sure to get Sean up to speed on them since he wasn't with us this year. But I loved that, I think everybody else really liked the way that we did the waivers or the keepers this year. And I think everybody except maybe Nolan fully understood the concepts.
What do you mean by that?
Well, Nolan kept picking up players who were being protected.
Well, I don't know. I think he understood the rules. He was just not paying attention.
I know. I'm just giving him a hard time. I'm just giving him a hard time. The entire draft. He signed in late. He had the first. Andrew had the first pick, but Nolan traded away. But Nolan was almost late for his third pick. It was. But yeah, actually, I liked going back to the other thing. I like Danny's idea about. You can still pick people up, if you're in the playoffs. And since it's about money and your budget, I think it's fair where I'm kind of changing my tune on this now that it says players should be locked as of your most recent actual game last week of regular season for people not in playoffs, the game you were eliminated for people actually playing. So
basically, if you're not in the playoffs, you can't pick people up.
Okay. Well, the only thing I'm going to say about that is that I do have an idea for the consolation bracket that we're going to get to, and so this decision does kind of affect that. So we'll go ahead and come back to the ad drops, the postseason ad drops when we get to that.
The consolation bracket. What was? Yeah, it's right with the
Okay. So we'll get to that in a minute.
Yeah.
The one thing that I want to propose for keepers starting next year, so not with the 2016 draft, but Danny, I already made sure to give waiver priority to the players in the real playoffs, so we did do that. But yeah, so for starting the 2017 draft, that the round you can keep someone who was kept the previous year cuts in half. So for example, Brandon and Danny traded Odell Beckham and DeAndre Hopkins this year. They're both 8th round keepers. 2016, they will be 8th round keepers. In 2018 or in 2017, they would be 4th round keepers. The following year, they'd be 2nd round keepers, and the year after that, they would be 1st round keepers. So if you continue to keep them the same way every year. Now if the next year Odell Beckham is a 4th round keeper, and you decide, you know what, I'd rather keep this guy as an 8th round pick, and Odell isn't kept, and he's injured, or for whatever reason falls to the 6th or 8th round, then it starts all over from that year.
Yeah.
It's only for repeat keepers.
Right. But okay, so you said this starts in 2017, meaning next year, basically the reason that I say starting 2017 is because Brandon and Danny executed that trade with the understanding that they get those players as 8th round keepers next year. Right.
And I don't want to change that.
Absolutely, yeah. But 2017,
but the following year they would be 4th round keepers.
All right. So it's not. It goes 8 and then 4.
Right.
8, 4, 2.
Right. Now the other thing, if we do that,
what if it would be an odd number?
Okay, so if it's an odd, that's a good question. If it's an odd number, so say you were drafted in the 7th round. Mm-hmm. The following year they're 4th round, so we round up. Okay. So 7 divided by 2 is 3.5. We round up to 4.
Got it.
5th round would become a 3rd round keeper, which would then become a 2nd round keeper, and then 1st round keeper. So that's how that would work. If we do this, we can also consider now we'd have to talk about players picked up on waivers, but draft picks could be the actual round. So if you draft someone in the 16th round, they could be a 16th round keeper, and then an 8th round keeper, and then a 4th round keeper. But if we did that, we'd have to discuss, waiver wire pickups, because waiver wire picks are kind of touchy. Because you can have a player who, I don't know, it gets kind of complicated at that point.
Yeah, waiver wire pickups, it's kind of like, it almost feels cheap to be able to keep them as an 8th round guy. I don't know.
And the thing is, if we move it to 16 to all the way through 16 rounds, 8th round isn't as bad for a waiver wire, because there is a chance that you might have someone who's worth keeping as a 15th round keeper over a waiver wire pickup as an 8th round keeper.
Right. Yeah. I think there should be more credit given to people who get good steals in the draft versus. Because the waiver wire pickup is completely reactionary.
Danny says he thinks 2-round jumps is better, and that was another thing that I was kind of thinking about. 2-round jumps also could work. Sorry, you can continue.
I don't remember what the hell I was saying.
Damn it!
Thanks a lot. I was saying. Shit, what was I saying? I think that you should get more credit for drafting somebody versus, because the waiver wire pickup, that's purely reactionary.
Right.
You pick somebody up on the waiver wire because you saw them do very well and you want them. A draft pick if you grab somebody that's productive in the very late rounds, like the 10th, 11th, 12th round, if you pick them up and they end up being worthy of starting or being maybe one of the top 10 players at their position, then you get full credit for making that pick. Even if it was a guess, it doesn't matter, because you made the pick and you get credit for that, for your foresight or whatever bullshit that you managed to make it happen with. It doesn't matter.
Right.
You got the guy before you knew he was good.
Right.
And I think you should get a little more something out of it.
Right. I agree with that. So I'll tell you what. I'll give 2 different options. 3 actually. 1. We just keep it the way it is. An 8th round keeper is an 8th round keeper for life. Unless we change it in a future year. But for now, 8th round keeper is 8th round keeper for life. So if next year we had another Odell for Hopkins trade, the following year they would still be 8th round keepers. That's option 1. Option 2 would be that we option 2 is that we do it 2-round increments like Danny is suggesting. But if we do that, I wouldn't want to go through all 16 rounds. Mm-hmm. So we stick with 8 rounds. it's 2-round increments instead of cutting it in half.
Okay.
And we move the waiver wire pickups to either a 4th or 6th round keeper selection, so that you still can get, more value for someone that you drafted.
Right.
Third option is we cut in half. We do 16 rounds worth of keepers, and waiver wire pickups are 8th round keepers.
Okay. What was option number 1 again?
We keep it the same as it is right now.
Oh, well, I think we're agreeing to say that that's not happening, right? I mean, I don't know. I like tinkering with it a little bit, so 2-round increments, split in half. I don't care.
Well, the difference is that 2-round increments would start at 8.
No, I understand the math.
Right. Okay.
I can math.
Okay.
I get it. I'm just saying, like, I get there's pluses and minuses to both. Where because we keep it at 8 if we do the 2x2.
Yeah.
Like go 8-6-4, whatever. But we stretch it all the way to 16. I'm leaning towards the increments at 2 instead of splitting it in half.
Okay.
That's
I like
just
that.
me. But then we have to figure out what are we going to do with waiver,
Well, waivers, we either do 4th or 6th round.
Okay. Yeah,
we can cross that bridge later on. But okay, so we'll do that. We'll keepers will be 2-round increments starting as late as round 8. And the other thing is that for that, like right now, if you draft someone and you drop them and someone picks them up, they are a keeper for whatever round they were drafted in.
Okay.
So if you drafted someone right now in round 8 or later, and then you drop them and someone picks them up and wants to keep them, they're an 8th round keeper.
Yeah.
In this situation, if you draft someone in the 8th round or later, you drop them and someone picks them up, that's going to count as a waiver wire pickup as far as I'm concerned. It has to be, in order to get that 7th or 8th round, it has to be your player, and you have to have kept them the whole season. They cannot be picked up later. They dropped and then picked back up. You have to have drafted them, and you have to have kept them on your roster the whole season.
Right, so you can't drop somebody,
right,
pick them up later and say, hey.
Still an 8th round keeper. No, at that point, they'd either be a 4th or 6th, depending on what we decide.
Sounds good to me.
Okay. All right. Moving on, I think we're good on the regular season setup. Obviously there's going to be some luck factors as far as your scheduling, that's fantasy. Yeah, that's part of fantasy.
We're not going to go to a top 6 scorers each week win, or fucking let's
or
just give
total
the
breakdown
total
or total points.
That's bullshit. No, the part of the fun of playing is matching up against people week to week, even if there's a shitload of luck involved and uncertainty with that.
Yeah.
That's part of it, and that's part of the enjoyment. Is when I play Corey and I beat him by 3 points every year, seems like, and he gets pissed at me. That's part of the fun.
Yeah. Okay. So we're not changing that at all for the playoffs. First thing is what you brought up earlier, which was the seeding. This year we had it that the top seed would play the wild card. William Battle was the wild card, but he also happened to be the second best team in the playoffs, which meant that the best 2 teams played each other in the first round of the playoffs. So I'm thinking that we change that. It's still going to be 3 division winners and a wild card, but the wild card will play whatever seed they deserve based on record and tiebreakers. So we will reseed the playoff field.
So that so that way, if somebody goes like 7-7 and wins their division, and you still get a playoff spot. Which if you go 7-7 and win your division, that ought to be good enough.
Yeah.
And there shouldn't be any extra perks for going 7-7. I don't think. And
right.
I think fantasy is tough because there's such a mishmash of crap.
Right.
Where you can, if you make the playoffs, it's a crapshoot. Like you can play the worst team in the playoffs, and they could go off and score 130 points and knock you out in the first round. So, but it's just an issue of how valuable do we want to make the seeds? And if you want the 1 seed to be worth something, they ought to go up against the team with the worst record in the postseason, regardless of wild card or division winner.
Right. So yeah, so we'll do that. We'll reseed the playoffs. Let's see here.
Grace's portion, yes, no? Yeah, sounds good.
Um,
Yours?
yeah, I can go. I'll get something.
How long?
Hopefully not too much longer. We're getting pretty close to the end, I think. Yeah.
I'll be home in a few minutes.
Okay, cool.
So, hey, Greg?
Yep.
All right.
Well,
Cool.
close on it.
Okay, so yeah, well, I'll pay my part.
Parentals will pick up the tab.
All right.
So where are we at?
Okay, so we are going to reseed the playoffs. The next thing, I want to shake things up a little bit for the consolation ladder. We talked about, I mentioned that a minute ago. Right now, online, we have the Snyder medal in the trophy area that goes to the loser of the consolation ladder. At some point, we may, purchase a Sacco trophy or something, sort of like what they had in the league, so that, and all that. But that part is not too important to me. What I really want to get to is for those teams that are eliminated from playoff contention before the last week of the regular season, if there was a way to go into ESPN and just say, anybody who's not in the playoffs just is not allowed to play, that's it. I would have done that when we first started this league, but there's not a way to do that. The consolation ladder is there. You can't get around that. So as long as it's there, why not make it mean something? So what I want to do is that players that are in the consolation ladder are playing for draft order. So instead of doing the draft order is the inverse order of standings, like at the end of the regular season, like it is right now, what I would want to do is I'll reseed the consolation ladder into 2 brackets, which with the best 4 and the worst 4 teams that miss the playoffs. After the playoffs, players will pick where they want to draft in the next year's draft, and the first person to pick will be the winner of the consolation ladder. So, this will keep anybody from, tanking at the end of the regular season to get a better draft pick or whatever, because you'll want to finish in the top 4 of the non-playoff teams if you can't get into the playoffs. So the winner of the consolation ladder gets first pick, and you can pick wherever you want to draft. You can pick first overall, you can pick, 12th, you can pick somewhere in the middle. The runner-up of the consolation ladder will get the second choice, and we'll run that down the first 7 spots.
Hey, what do you prefer, the off-the-menu thing or the hibachi thing?
I'm good with whatever.
So that boy wants hibachi, you can go with hibachi.
Yeah, hibachi.
Go with hibachi.
Yeah, that's cool.
All right.
All right, so the loser of the 3rd place game will pick 8th, followed by the winner of the 3rd place game, followed by the league runner-up, followed by the league champion, and then whoever gets last in the consolation ladder gets whatever pick is left.
Sounds like fun.
We cool with that?
Yeah, man, I'm cool with that. But
Yes, Danny, I will write that down.
Yeah, that's a lot of shit.
It'll be in the document, so I will write that down. I'll make sure it's spelled out clearly. So. And then the other thing we need to do is discuss tiebreakers. It's not really a significant change or really even a change at all. Basically, I'm gonna specify in the rules and regulations document this year that the wildcard teams or the wildcard team will be the team with the best record that finished 2nd in their division. So we'll break ties within divisions before determining the wild card. We did that this year. It just wasn't spelled out black and white in the document, and Danny brought that to my attention going into the playoffs. So I will write that out. The other thing is that any 3-way tie between either within a division or between 3 teams from different divisions will be broken by their total points scored on the season.
So
if you have 3 teams in the same division that have the same record, and nobody has the head-to-head tiebreaker, we'll go to points, and that's already in there. That's already set in stone. As far as if you have 3 teams in different divisions that have the same records, one of them, team 1 beat team 2, team 2 beat team 3, and team 3 beat team 1, right? Then we're just going to go straight to points.
Yeah.
Whoever scored the most points of those teams will get the wild card.
Sounds good.
So at this point, we can discuss the postseason ad drop thing, and we don't have to make a decision on that tonight.
Yeah.
We can, people can sleep on that and decide. But that's all that I had for my agenda for the offseason rules meeting. If anybody has any other suggestions, let us know. We may or may not implement them. Probably won't, because I think we pretty much went through the whole document and decided what we felt needed to be changed. But maybe you'll come up with something.
If you come up with something, we'll
So-
take it under advisement.
So that brings us to one other thing that we want to discuss. Did you say 5 PPR? Not 0.5, but 5. Holy crap.
What the hell? Sweet. I keep Demarius after all. Catches like 10 passes for 50 yards.
Right. Jesus. Yeah, no. I'm thinking no to that.
Yeah, I think that idea is hilarious.
Okay. So I think that Danny and Evan might be the only people who are actually watching this right now. Actually, it looks like a few more people might be watching it. I can't tell who all was watching. All I know is that it says 1 viewer, and Danny's the only one who's commenting on here, but Evan is also commenting, so we must have more than 1 viewer. Maybe it's just Danny is the only one with a Google.
Well, you're gonna upload this thing, right? So
Yes, I'm going to upload this so people can still watch it afterwards. And I'll post what time we start talking about this so that you don't have to watch the whole hour-plus thing if really the only thing you care about is Dynasty. Dynasty fantasy football is the one other thing that we want to discuss.
apparently everybody wants to see.
Yeah, well, it's up right now. You can.
Oh, Christ. Hey, everybody.
Okay. So let me get to the screen share of the fantasy website that we would be using for Dynasty. It is called Reality Sports Online,
Oh, shit.
or RSO for short, and they do have an app that we'll be able to use.
You gotta have an app. If they didn't have an app, I'd say no.
Nope. So
I live on my. It's fucking amazing.
okay. Evan, let me know if this works right. I'm hoping. Oh, whoa! It's like I don't know, but hopefully it's fine now. So let's see. Does it work? Okay, yes, it does. So
What the hell
look
is
at that. So I can pull up this.
What is this, like 3D art or some shit?
And then when
Or
I
just
put it down, that's hilarious.
what?
I don't know. That's funny. Anyway, so now we're good. So this is the website that we'd be using. It's realitysportsonline.com. This is, and I've looked through several different Dynasty options, and I mean we can do Dynasty through ESPN. There's not enough customization, not enough features. So how it works, and we'll get through this quickly. It is RSO is designed for the avid fantasy user, and it emulates a professional front office operations and realistic general manager experience. So that my dad always loves to tease me when he got roped into doing fantasy with his work league. He's like, why don't we just call it fantasy GM? Well, this really is kind of fantasy GM.
Yeah, actually, like,
Okay.
money and shit.
Yes, you're essentially dealing with money. Everybody has a salary cap, and the salary cap is the same as the NFL salary cap. So every year it updates, and whatever the NFL sets its cap at, that's going to be your cap. You can draft players, and the way that the draft would be, we'd have a rookie draft, which is a snake draft.
Yeah, it's a snake draft.
I think it's a snake draft. I'd have to look at that.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure.
But-
free agents.
But how much money you pay the rookies is determined by where in the draft they're picked.
So it's an automatic.
The same way as it is in the NFL. Now the values I don't think are exactly the same as in the NFL, but when you draft a rookie, you can either sign them to a 4 or a 3 year contract.
Now, does
And
the,
then we have the free
does
agent
the dollar
auction.
amount change if I sign a rookie to a 3 versus 4? Because I know that
I don't think it.
is the same annual amount. Like
The annual amount would change slightly. It would be a little bit less the first year, and so on.
okay.
So basically, the way the contracts work is, like for a 4-year contract, it's always going to be backloaded. So 22% is paid in the first year, 24% the second, 26% the third, 28% the fourth year. And that's if you do a 4-year contract. For the after the rookie draft, we would have a free agent auction draft. And in that draft, and I'll show you what the format kind of looks like. This is the free agent auction room. Once it loads up, this is an image of what it looks like. So you would nominate a player for draft. Everybody gets a chance to make different offers. And the nice thing is that you can put in a manual offer, but it's also always going to give you a 1-year, a 2-year, a 3-year, and a 4-year offer that the player will accept. So you don't have to think about money and all that stuff. The computer will do that for you. So that helps a lot. You still have to keep track of making sure that you stay under your salary cap, but all that should be in there for you to be able to see. The computer keeps track of all of that stuff. Okay. Multi-year contracts, you can sign a certain number of players for 4-year contracts, a certain number for 3-year, a certain number to 2-year, and everybody else to 1-year. We can customize that. Standard is usually 1 4-year contract, 2 3-year, 3 2-year contracts, and an unlimited 1-year contract. We can change that. And everything is on the FAQ page. So if you're a little bit confused, read through it, because I was confused when I first went through it. And once I really took the time to read through it carefully, it's much more clear. There's information in here as far as in-season cap, in-season moves, as far as, if you sign a player in season or if you cut a player in season. Contracts are always guaranteed for the first year, 100%, and then 50% guaranteed for each future year. So, for example, if a player signs a 4-year, $50 million contract where it's $11 million paid in the first year, $12 in the second, $13 million in the third year, and $14 million in the fourth year, and then they're cut in the middle of that first year, the entire $11 million is going to count against that year's cap because it was a 100% guaranteed. The remaining guarantee, which is 50% of the future years, which is a total of $19.5 million, would be accelerated and would all count against the next year's cap. So you do have to think about that kind of stuff. It is very in depth. I'm not going to sugarcoat that. It's a really interesting concept. Eric and I both are really interested in doing this. One thing I do want to say is that any good Dynasty League website out there that I found, anyone that was this or even half as good as this, it costs money to use it. For this one, it is $9.99, so basically $10 per team to run a league. Yes, you can see that here. I'm going to highlight it. Commissioners have the option to pay for the entire league. I'm not doing that. Eric's not doing that. And the reason is because the same thing that we talked about when we were discussing trading future draft picks in our league, this is a multi-year thing. This is something if you're going to do this, we want people who are going to be dedicated, who are going to take it seriously during the season and are, don't want to just do it 1 year and then be done. And additionally, you need to pay for the year that we're in. And if you make any moves involving future years, and that goes from, if you cut a player who has a multi-year contract 1 year, you're going to have to pay for the next years in order to do your entry fee for the next year to do that. You don't have to pay for the next 3 years because the full amount that's guaranteed for those next however many years the contract accelerates against the next year's cap. So if someone comes in, they're not going to be hurting 2 years down the road, right, but they'd be hurting that next year. And I don't want that person to have to pay that entry fee for that year if they're going to be dealing with that kind of bullshit. So you're going to have to pay that amount. Likewise, if you trade for future draft picks, which I think really only concerns rookie picks because the free agency thing is an auction, you need to pay your entry fee for whatever years you trade away or for draft picks in the future. So that is going to be something that we do. We are not able to actually start the league until sometime like early March. So we have time, and we don't even need to start it that early because I'm going to need time. Eric and I are going to need time to really iron out details and, for me to write up a rules and regulations document for that league. But think about it. If it's something you're interested in, let us know. It's going to be $10, and that's, there's no payout at the end of the season. If we want to make this a money league, we can do that, but it would cost more money to join. And the payout at the end of the season is going to be, minus $10 times however many teams we have in the league. That part would not be paid out because that goes to the website for hosting us. Is there anything else you wanted to add about it?
Nah, I think that's. Any other information is on the website. So
Okay.
if you didn't follow all that, you can go. Obviously you can watch this again, or you can go check out the site. Either way,
Yeah.
The information's out there. It's not like it's just.
Yeah, and like Danny said, that the $10 depends on how good it is. My feelings about this are that this is a very good platform. This is by far the best one that offers Dynasty. And there's not really a whole lot of stuff on here that I'm like, man, I wish, it does, I wish that there was something else.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't leave me wanting anything. So this is a good setup. I think that it's worth the $10. But obviously, if you don't think it's worth the $10, we need to know that we have people who are interested in doing this for more than 1 year. So I'll go ahead and post the link back in the draft. I think that yes, Danny, I believe that there is a mock draft. I don't think it's open right now, but it should open in March. If you look up here, there's this thing right here that my mouse is hovering over the free mock. I can click on that right now, and you're going to see. Oh no! So it looks like we actually can start a mock draft now, maybe. Yeah, well, we're not going to do that right now. But if people are interested in doing that